Greetings and welcome to season 3 of Leagues Behind. Leagues Behind is the vodcast of the Arena Gauntlet League where we look back at past tournament offerings and we try to see what design lessons we can learn and bring forward into future AGL League designs. I'm your host, Christopher York. I'm a philosopher of sports and games and the founder of the AGL. And with me, returning for I think his fourth appearance on the vodcast, is a former league committee member and longtime league stalwart, Johnny Mariani, to talk with us about Neon Dynasty League. So welcome, Johnny, again.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. And thanks for reaching out to me for this set in particular. This
Yeah,
was a fun one to work on.
well, you were responsible, I think, for the main mechanic of the league. So you were the obvious person to reach out to. Let's talk about what Neon Dynasty was before we get into what we can learn from it. It was a mono set league, and the year was 2022 when we offered this one, I believe. And my concern, my perennial concern with monoset leagues is that we don't want to have a sort of too boring or too homogenous experience over a 6 week course of events. So players don't get burned out. They have access to alternate strategies, surprising moments, etc. And I think that the compromise that we came up with, I think you wanted this to be a monoset league. I think the compromise we came up with was the bonus sheet. So the idea was that you would make, I think it was mostly you, although there was some input from the LC perhaps as well. You'd make this bonus sheet, and there'd be one card from the bonus sheet that would appear in addition to the contents of the regular Neon Dynasty packs, and that would sort of sneak a little bit of spice into the league. So I guess as a first order of business, if you could kind of talk us through the bonus sheet that you came up with, and maybe just the philosophy of bonus sheets in general in league design, because I think this was our first one, right?
Yeah. And so I think part of the reason for it here is so we had just done Chaos League, which is everything mixed together. We kind of want to do something different from that, and what's more different than mono set. But also the standard set before this was Crimson Vow, and then before that was Midnight Hunt, and I think we were a little fed up of Innistrad at that point, and our next league was going to be double feature, and also like I think we all realized that if we allowed the usual pick anything from the last 6 sets, that Crimson Vow would take a lot of space in this league with its huge bombs, and that's just it's not a great set for a league, and we didn't want that to kind of hang over Neon Dynasty like we've seen with other sets like War of the Spark and Strixhaven. So it made a lot of sense here to just do Neon Dynasty, but as you said, mono set doesn't have quite enough going for it, and so doing the bonus sheet, we had 121 cards, and that really helps make the mono set work and differentiates it from just playing draft or just playing sealed queues on Arena. We're offering a unique experience here. A unique set.
Yeah,
and this is also coming off a little bit. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
This is a little bit after Strixhaven and its Mystical Archive. So maybe the idea of a bonus sheet is floating around from that, and because Kamigawa is a return set, there's there's a history there, and we were able to use the bonus sheet a little bit to reflect that history. We got some of the cards from the original Kamigawa block. Another thing was a few months before this was Jumpstart 21, which added a ton of cards to the Arena card pool, including a lot of Modern Horizons 1 and 2. And I definitely been wanting to do something with those cards. They're new, they're exciting, they're a little more complicated. and this was a way to work a lot of them into League.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So that was the comment I was getting to. It's like I looked over the bonus sheet, which is still there on Cube Cobra, and it can be accessed through the rules and registration link in the Discord. And I noticed that things basically fell in four categories, right? So there's the OG Kamigawa cards that were reprinted for Arena. So we stuck as many of those in there as we could. Cards that dealt with either enchantments, as in Theros cards, or artifacts like Kaladesh, the original set. So any cards we can get from those sets, we kind of put in. And then finally, the last category were cards that just weren't in any Arena main set offerings, which is kind of like it's a little pet project of mine and a pet project of yours, is to kind of like use that real estate on Arena, right? So you have the cards that are live on the client. We have no other opportunity to see them in play, except for very limited durations or special events or whatever. Seeing them in a league context lets them shine, lets them have their day, and so yeah, I think that there's an appropriate and interesting mix here, and since we weren't going to do a Jumpstart League, still haven't done a Jumpstart League, then yeah, those cards needed to have some sort of home, so they found it here. So regarding the like selections themselves, were there any like standouts or any sort of bombs that you want to comment on?
Well, just going just before we get to specific cards, I think it's all and adding to the some of the criteria to make it in.
Mm,
Another factor is not standing out too much. Trying to still respect the feel of Kamigawa.
right.
So
Flavor.
and that that's tough, obviously, because each set is a different setting. But we don't see cards that are like overtly from Innistrad here. There's a couple things like Nyx Fleece Ox, which is a very Theros-y card, but really trying to respect the setting and not disrupt that too much. And that's part of the reason why there's so much Kaladesh here, because Kaladesh has a bit of like the steampunk feel.
Right.
It was pretty close to Kamigawa's cyberpunk feel.
Right. I guess.
And
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
and also we're adding all these cards. Staying away from bombs was pretty important. You're trying to find cards that are people are going to be interested in playing, but without things that are going to ruin games or that are going to feel like, oh, what's this doing here? Why am I losing a game to this card, and actually give people a negative experience. I, I like looking for stuff that base gives players new plays to figure out. Maybe new combos. Here's a card. Figure out what you can do with it. And yeah, like enhancing some of the set mechanics. Definitely, there was some color shifting of set mechanics. Obviously, in draft, there's always like the two color archetypes, which make a lot of sense for draft. So, for example, in Neon Dynasty, you have modified in red and green. Well, when you're playing sealed, things aren't always as clean as in draft. Sometimes you're playing a black-green deck and you have four modified green modified. Sorry, you're playing black-green and you have four green modified matters cards. Well, okay, how about if, for our purposes, we throw in a couple black cards that are modified, so you can get some interaction there and make your deck building in League more interesting. So that was definitely part of it, of finding cards in each color that fit the themes of Neon Dynasty, like artifacts, enchantments, modified, ninjutsu, vehicles and equipment as a sub-theme of artifacts, discarding and channeling. And yeah, that's actually something I find really fun.
Yeah, I mean,
Looking through Scryfall and pulling things out.
this was a passion project for you, as I recall, and I think it was fairly well received in that it got around what I kind of used to nervously describe as the curation problem, which I think is less of a problem now than it used to be. So I'll speak briefly to that before we get into the set itself that you curated. So there, back in the day, there was a people were precious about their packs, or more precious about their packs. They wanted to have them delivered in the form that WotC wanted you to play them, right? And they were well, they are more critical certainly about the LC kind of getting in there and making packs the way that we wanted them to be, right? Do you remember the blowback that we used to get a little bit about this? Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing? Why this card, not that card? It maybe wasn't necessarily that pronounced here because you did such a great job with the bonus sheet, but I remember there were some earlier motions to do this, and it created some anxiety on the server. I'll explain maybe now why I see it as less of a problem than it used to be. I think that there are two things, right? So one is that the faith in WotC's process has diminished. Like, they don't get it right anywhere near as much as they used to. It's less of a fine-tuned machine than it used to be. They're pumping out bulk product incredibly quickly, and things get through the grading that wouldn't normally have gotten through. And I think correspondingly with the success of our little tournament series, the AGL, faith in the LC has increased, right? So when we take a swing, more people are behind it and less willing to just engage in fruitless critique before the fact. So it's partly like their stock's going down, our stock's going up, and it kind of frees our hands a bit more to curate bonus sheets, to curate cube sets, to curate all sorts of things. Like, and we're sort of like, you can see, I think now, as opposed to like early league design, we're way more willing to take big swings than we used to be, right?
Yeah, and Neon Dynasty having a bonus sheet follows from AFR having curated cards mixed into there, and this definitely led the way for Ixalan Remastered, which had a big curated element to it, and then even Modern Horizons 3 Zombie League had a whole curated sheet to it, and yeah, one thing leads to another, and you build trust and you push the boundary as you go, and yeah, at the time, though, this was fairly novel and partly enabled by maybe there's new tech with Booster Tutor and something with Cube Cobra that maybe allowed it to work. But yeah, I definitely agree with the idea of we used to have a very strong like gotta be true to paper attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, when like I don't know, you have like play boosters and you have things like
Alchemy.
like mana drain being printed
Yeah.
into a set. Eric, look, if Wizards is going to put mana drain in OTJ, we can put whatever we want in Neon Dynasty.
Right. Now I think like the worry is almost like, let's not put in cards that are too weak, let's not put in cards that are too strong. Right? The pendulum swung in the opposite direction. I remember we used to worry, is this card going to deform the format, right? Is this card going to overwhelm the base set and become too much of a focal point? I think doing this now, we were sweet summer children back then, compared to now. I think that a lot of those worries have gone by the wayside. It's like, most of the time it's going to be okay. The game's robust enough to take a lot of tinkering. And
For sure. And one safety valve that we had on our side was the size of the bonus sheet, where we went with 121 cards, which is sort of the size of a paper print sheet. Like the Time Spiral sheet is 121 cards. The Mystery Booster playtest cards, that sheet is 121 cards, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in that case, each card is equivalent to a mythic rare. And so, if there's a card that's a miss, it's not that big of a deal because it's only going to be in 1 in 121 packs. It's going to show up, what is that, 1 in every 20 starting pools, let's say. It's not too big of a deal. It's not going to be something like Polar Bear taking over in Brawl League,
Yeah,
right?
we
Like
still talk about that.
all, all these cards are rare enough that we're kind of protected from any one or any two being too big of a problem.
Right. So, with that being said, I mean, the curation problem is something we used to talk about quite a bit. It's become less of an issue now, I think, than ever before. But given that, you did have to put such, I mean, this was the big mechanic. The bonus sheet was the big mechanic for Neon Dynasty. And given that you put so much effort in, I thought I would give you the opportunity to walk us through some of your picks and maybe talk about them.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. The first priority was cards from original Kamigawa block. So we have like Isamaru, Hound of Konda.
Yeah.
There's Azusa, Lost but Seeking. There's a couple of the Hondens. We put a cycle of Hondens, but some were from Kamigawa, some were from M21. And then there was actually, we've got a few ninjas like Okiba Gang Shinobi, and that's the black one that mind
Makes a
rots
discard, yeah.
your opponent when it hits.
Yeah.
Then we put the one that draws a card when it hits, Ninja Deep Hours. So it was really, those were like all high priority. Although there was one that we had in the first draft that got red flagged. Damien brought it up. It's Kira Glass Spinner or Great Glass Spinner, like a Windrake that says all your creatures, like counter the first spell that targets all your creatures each turn.
Yeah.
Which means like your opponent has to spend. It's like Mother Runes, sort of, where like your opponent has to spend 2 removal spell to get rid of it, and if they don't have that, they're screwed. That got cut, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean that I used to play with that card in the original Kamigawa format, and I mean it does die to negative X effects. Pretty like there's lots of -2, -2 in black that can deal with it quite nicely, but you need to have one of those in the format reliably.
Wait, you have to have 2 of them in your hand, though.
No, because it's just target. It just gets counted if it targets, right? So wraths deal with it nicely,
Okay.
or like
Yeah,
general -2 effects, like
like a
kind of like a double
Yeah.
nausea or whatever whatever card we have that does that now. So there's ways around it. I feel like it's not a chokehold, and it's there's ways around it too. Like you can hit with your icy manipulator that takes off the sort of shield, and then you can target it, right? So there's activated abilities can deal with it. I feel like maybe even Kira, we could have gotten away with sneaking in there. I was a little sad that Kira got on the chopping block. Just because, I do think people should get to play with their golden tickets, and if they happen to get a Kira, and they happen to be playing blue, and they happen to want a Windrake that shields their team, I don't know. It's very cute. So I was sad to see her go.
But I think I think that was maybe the only card that got flagged from as being maybe too much, which I think is a good sign. For the power level we're going for. Cards that people will be interested in playing, but that won't actually take over, won't be the stars of their pools. So another class of cards that was really important was cards that are Kamigawa themed, but aren't necessarily from the original block. And that's where the Modern Horizons really came in handy, because there was a ninjutsu packet,
Right.
and we got a few ninjas. There's like Azura Smoke Shaper, and Throat Seeker that says like unblock ninjas. You control of lifelink, and getting those in was like just like perfect fit. There was Phantom Ninja was another card from Modern Horizons.
Yep.
Uh,
Slam dunks.
Ghostlit Drifter was a Kamigawa themed card that we put in, and that was maybe the most problematic, I think, of everything on the list. And so it got in because it's Kamigawa themed. It's a spirit. It has channel, and it's the only card that we had available to us that had channel.
Right.
And channel's, a major mechanic in this set. So it's like, well, you got to get this in.
Flavor.
We have artifacts is covered, enchantments is covered, equipment's covered, but we got to get the channel card in. But the problem is its channel ability is pay X and a blue, discard it, and X target creatures gain flying until end of turn. And it's also a win drake.
Yeah.
But you're playing a normal game of limited. Each player has a bit of a board. You think, you're thinking a turn or two ahead, and then your opponent just goes channel. My whole board gets flying. Swing, you're dead. Wait, what? I thought we were having fun here. Like, why is the game over?
Yeah, I think the blue kind of got an embarrassment of those kinds of cards, like blue and black, right? The ninja colors, probably looking back on it, got the best deals on the bonus sheet. Hard to get around that, really. Still, flavor's important, and I think that that served that purpose quite nicely.
Yeah. Some other cards that are, I think, worth highlighting. So I really like. We got War Chanter Scald in there, which I'm sure no one knows this card. It's a dwarf cleric from Kaldheim, but it wasn't in the main set. It was in, I guess, the set boosters, and it's a 3-mana 2/3. When it becomes tapped, if it's enchanted or equipped, create a 2/1 dwarf token. And this was just perfect for this set because there's an enchantment theme and there's an equipment theme, and it's a card that no one's ever cast before, but it's just like an uncommon. It's nothing special, and you just put it in there, and the theme is a little off because it's a dwarf cleric, but mechanically, to me, it was a slam dunk. Where you can play it, you'll be happy with it. If you do the thing, you feel like you got rewarded, but it's not dominating the game or ruining anyone's experience.
Yeah.
And it allows that kind of blurring of mechanical lines, where it'll play well with your like modified stuff and your living, the equipment that they're the creatures that can become equipment. You can put on that.
Yeah, no one complained about it. We don't know the card's name, which means that it probably was fine, right? In retrospect. Yeah. So there was the cards that made the enchantments work and the cards that made the artifacts work, right? I think that, the set's sort of split between the two. I don't know if you got a chance to check out the design. I think Jordan designed the plane for Foundations League that dealt with Kamigawa. And basically the flavor was you can get a pack that either lacks artifacts entirely or lacks enchantments entirely, or a normal pack. So it was another one of those like pick pack X or Y or Z planes. But what we found out when he designed that was that it's pretty balanced still. If you take out one or another of these elements, the packs still work on their own pretty well. So what am I trying to say? I guess that looking back at the bonus sheet and the relatively equal split between enchantments matters and artifacts matters cards fits well with the design of the main set. And I guess, like as I told you sort of before recording, one of the reasons why I think this is a good time to return to Neon Dynasty to discuss it as a set and as a league is that we're about to go into week 3 of Pioneer Masters, right, where we're going to be opening up Neon Dynasty packs for the first time in quite a while, along with Pioneer Masters. So, I mean, I guess, do you have any notes, generally speaking, about the set and how, what to look out for, what to seek for when we're opening those packs next week? Any recollections?
Oh, I really, yeah, I'm not sure. It really just depends on your pool. Neon Dynasty has good fixing, so that'll pair up well with Pioneer Masters, where there's so many gold cards, and again, there's so many dual lands that you want to play. Although I guess you'll have to save it for the week after, after Devotion Week. But Yeah, and I think Neon Dynasty was really notable for being a dense set,
Right.
like mechanically dense, and with a lot of overlap. And when it came out, it was really innovative in that way, I think. Because before that, you'd have a set and you'd have the different mechanics of the set, and each card would fit one of the mechanical themes, so there'd never be any overlap. So, for example, you have a ninja and it's only a ninja. You have
Right.
an artifact and it's only an artifact, and the things don't mix, and they don't mix. And in Kamigawa, that changed. In Kamigawa, you have your ninjas, and some of them are enchantments, and some of them are artifacts, and then you have artifacts that care about being modified, and you have enchantments that affect your samurais attacking alone, and and all the mechanics overlap, and it was like more so than any set ever before, and that's something I really liked about it. That it you had to think about more cards, and there's more ways to combine them,
Yeah.
and
There's,
so that's I think
yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of depth there. A lot of depth of play.
yeah, and so I think it'll be interesting for Pioneer Masters because the cards are versatile and do more than one thing.
So, looking back at this league now, and considering the bonus sheet as it is, if we did this today, would you do anything different? Right. So let's say that we're redesigning Neon Dynasty League. What would you change? What would you keep the same?
I there'd be like little tweaks here and there, one card out, one card in. Overall, although I really like the structure, I really like the approach, I like the goals of it. I think I met the goals. A lot of these cards I found it really appealing. 2 years ago, the arena card pool, or was this 3 years ago?
I
The
think it
arena card
was
pool wasn't as big as it is now.
2.5 maybe.
So, if we did it now, there'd just be a ton more cards to choose from. But, if we had to use the card pool that was available then, I really like, I mean, I, yeah, I came up with a list of the, like, there's obviously, when I look at this list, I can tell that I'm the one who did it based on some of the selections. Like I'm looking at right now, Perilous Mirror, Faceless Agent, and Mind Stone in the colorless section, and those are like three cards that I put in every single cube. They're like the first cards in.
So
Because I finally really like their
there's
game.
some pets there. There's some
Yeah.
pet cards that made their way in.
So like I like the cards that are here. One thing that stands out to me is there's a few alchemy cards in this list, a few online only cards,
Right.
and I'm surprised that you guys let me get away with them, and that they weren't vetoed.
I think that there's a couple of things there, right? So I think that Neon Dynasty was like the first kind of flavored, sort of cyberpunk or whatever set. So the flavoring was kind of modernistic and futuristic, and the future's digital and electronic, and that seemed to fit with alchemy. And alchemy, we'd never done an alchemy league before, and after Brawl League, we'll probably never do it again. It didn't have the bad name. Like alchemy didn't have the stink on it that it does now. I think people were still willing to try alchemy cards, and this was a good place to try them because we were sort of like trying out a smidgen of this and a smidgen of that, and I think the idea was like a very light spicing of alchemy cards might be okay. Let's just test the water and see if people reject it wholesale or whether they're excited about more. So I think that was like a testing ground. Mm.
Yeah.
But in
I
terms,
mean, I think the cards that are
yeah, go on.
the alchemy cards that we have here are like pretty inoffensive.
Right.
Something like Faceless Agent, which I think a very lovable card. It enters the battlefield, seek a creature of the most common type in your deck,
Right.
and so if you're playing samurais, you put it in, it draws you a samurai. If you're playing ninjas, you put it in, it draws you a ninja. and you're happy with it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, though, for
So
example, if we did this again, right, would it be enough by modern league standards just to have a bonus sheet and say, we're just playing the main set, but we got this bonus sheet, guys. That's the big league mechanic. In 2025, is that going to fly?
no, I don't think so. For me, it would be enough, but I think in general, like, we've kind of gone too far and have maybe set the bar too high that I think a lot of our regular players would find it underwhelming.
Mm.
And like, for example, in Pioneer Masters, there's, bonus sheets. And it's a large set and there's a lot of interesting cards, kind of like a bonus sheet.
Yeah.
But it it has a whole lot more than that. It has the great Planeswalker mechanic, and it has the other packs mixed in, and it's definitely like a step beyond, even though there's already a built-in bonus sheet.
Yeah, so that's a good crossover, actually, point of reference to Pioneer Masters League, right? Like there's 3 bonus sheets and they sort of drift in and out of your pool. That's where we're at these days. And all that's done for you automatically by the bot. This is something we could only have dreamed of 2.5 years ago, right? Yeah. So I do think, looking back at these leagues from, quite a long time ago now, it feels like, really tells us more about where we're at and where we're going, I suppose, than where we've been. Although the historical particulars are also important, at least to me and to other people who have been members of the community for as long as we have.
Yeah, and yeah, like this lead design was a product of, as you said, kind of the time, based on what we did before and after, and what the other sets were, and yeah, what our capabilities were. We're just like being able to add these cards. Like, I don't know, they were added into booster tutors, so the packs were. We got a custom code, so we could get packs with them. Like that was fantastic. Like wow, we can do this. Amazing.
Yeah, we had to negotiate
And
that with
now that would,
Francisco, I think, at the time, right? So
but now that wouldn't be special, and I would want to push a little bit further than that. I'm going to go back to a question you asked me a few minutes ago about
sure.
what I would change about the sheet. I think one thing would be to add more shrines. So we put a cycle of shrines. We put 5 of them, and that seemed like a lot. And there's already, the cycle that was in the main set uncommon, the creature shrines. But yeah, I think we have had space here to maybe put all 10. Like, it's such a beloved card type, and you're putting in 5 more out of 121 cards. It'd be fine. It wouldn't. I think there was concern of putting too many, but that wasn't an issue in the end.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think that we could have been a bit more bullish about that. It wasn't going to turn into Shrine the League, right? Because some of them are underwhelming. A lot of them you're going to open up are not going to be in the colors you're playing. You need to get to a sort of critical mass to make it all worthwhile. But the more of them you have, the more likely that they're going to be even marginally useful. So, yeah, we could have hit the gas a bit harder on Shrine.deck.
And when 1 or 2 players, which I think we had 1 player kind of get there on going hard on shrines, but when players get to do that, that's great. Like, you have a unique deck, it's interesting stories, it's unique gameplay, and I think that's something that we want. And that's something that doing a bonus sheet allows. And that, here, some special cards, not everyone has them. They're changing, what you can do with the rest of your Neon Dynasty pool. Figure something out. Could you combo Chrome Courier with anything in the set? Maybe. Can you hidden stockpile? Okay, think about, what you're doing here with the servo you're generating every turn. What's its uses, And I really like that idea, letting people figure things out and go in different directions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Johnny, I know that you have an appointment sort of abutting this interview, so I won't keep you much longer, except to ask you, is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude our episode?
Yeah, just to rewind how we came up with the idea. We gave some of the reasonings for doing the mono set in the bonus sheet, but I think the original idea, we were kind of playing around with Okay, so like Kamigawa, what is this set? It's like the cyberpunk set, and when you think cyberpunk, I'm thinking like modifications, upgrades, like cybernetic upgrades, hacking. I'm trying to think of like we hack the packs, how can we
Mm-hmm.
upgrade things? I think that's maybe some of the root, of okay, okay, we can, upgrade this, upgrade the packs and put these little, loose flavor, but still flavorful with the theme of the set, with these modifications. And also in the theme of Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty has like the tension of the past versus the future, enchantments versus artifacts. Like we are looking at the past. We're looking at original Kamigawa block, but also looking at these like modern Horizons cards that are kind of more innovative and more sort of future, you could say. And so I think like the thematic root of the idea works really well alongside the sort of like mechanical implications and yeah, and just how it like how it fits the rest of what we are doing at the time
Yeah,
with Leagues, and
I remember
so I
that
really appreciated
discussion.
that.
Yeah, I remember that discussion very fondly. And the only thing that I would do differently, I suppose, in that regard would be to sort of highlight that flavorful connection more in the branding, right? And say, in this league, you get a modified pack, right? Or something
Mhm.
like that that
Yeah,
sort of screams to the players, okay, we're going, like, it was all happening within the LC channels, but we could have been more upfront with the player base about how this was supposed to reflect the flavor of the set.
yeah. I think when we finally started League, yeah, we left that idea behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's great to remember those discussions, and a lot of forethought went into, you know, what kind of world is this? How is this reflected in league mechanics? And even though by today's standards, it's not like we took a giant leap, but it was still a pretty big step, I think. And like you pointed out, right? We wouldn't have leagues like Pioneer Masters where you have like bonus sheets floating in and out. And even though that's Wizards work, but it wouldn't be out with our purview to do the same thing, right? To have our own bonus sheets rotating quite easily. It's
Yeah,
all
it's really
there.
like the principle of us taking ownership of the format, I think, and saying like we're not just playing retail sealed. We're doing something else. We're exploring and we're offering something that you can't get in the usual queues. There's obviously a ton of value there, and and in this case, I feel like it turned out great.
Yeah, me too. And thanks, Johnny, for joining us today. I got to say, it's been good reminiscing about Neon Dynasty. Looking forward to cracking a few packs. Well, hopefully not cracking too many packs next week. Uh,
Yeah.
Watching my opponents crack packs of Neon Dynasty. How are you doing in Pioneer Masters, by the way? You doing all right?
I had a rough start, but this week was good. I won 4-1, and so now I'm sitting at 6-4, and just playing Rakdos deck, just trying to curve out with a couple of the there's a Blood Tithe Vampire, the 3/2 for 2 that makes a blood token, and use Obnixlus's Cruelties to clear the way and hopefully finish my opponent off before they start doing good things.
Yeah.
um,
So it sounds like if you're already
and
if
yet,
you're already in Rakdos, I guess that Guild Week's not going to bother you too much.
no, yeah, I considered switching the guilds based on what my new bonus sheet cards were. But in the end, I'm going to stick to what's working. And yeah, and definitely the first week I tried doing the 5 color pile and floundered a little bit. But yeah, the Rakdos deck looking good. And I had to cut 1 card in the end for the color restrictions. So a hybrid card. Looking good for week 3.
All right, then. Well, good luck in your next week of Pioneer Masters play. And thanks again, Johnny, for joining me to discuss your critical role in helping Neon Dynasty League. Uh, breathe the way it did and be a success in the way that it was.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Johnny. Bye for now.
Good night. Cheers.